Hello and welcome back to another edition of the All American Spook Show podcast. I'm Josh and I'm joined here with Donnie,
Yo.
Tiana,
Hey.
and the Professor Smoke.
What's up?
And our Polar Predators event continues here this week. And where the whole premise of Polar Predators is we're talking about movies with Yetis, snow monsters, abominable snowmen, all that kind of stuff, right? So that has brought us to Tiana's pick. Now, Tiana, you had to pick a not vintage, but a older, which is something from 1970 to 1999 that came out, but that also had something to do with this Polar Predators event. So, what do we have to watch this week?
This week is 1975's Night of the Howling Beast.
Now, this is one that I had never seen myself.
I've never seen it either.
Yeah. Donnie, had you ever seen this one?
No.
All right, Smoke. I'm sure you've seen it like 8 times, right?
I never heard of it before. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. Yeah, it's I've seen it probably. This is maybe the third time I've seen it, but it's definitely the best I've seen it look. I don't own this on DVD, but we watched it on. I can't remember if it was Tubi or was it one of those. Whatever. But yeah, and it looked very good compared to the old VHS washed out print that I remember renting back in the day, and also. There was some glitch, and I don't know if this went on. I don't know where y'all watched it at, but we watched it, and it was glitching near the end. It would not let us continue the last 10 or 15 minutes of the movie. I had to go because, like I said, we don't own this one, so I did go to YouTube to see if it was some copy of it put up on there, and there was. But apparently, it was struck from that VHS that I was talking about, and it is night and day. If y'all had I don't know if y'all had the problem with the glitching at the end or not.
No, I didn't. I was able to watch. I mean, like, other than you know how Plex is, you're watching something free with ads, so you get an ass load of ads. But past that,
we did get that.
Problems with
it. Well, that's what happened. It was freezing up on an ad. Well, it looked like it was going to go to an ad at the end. Like I said, the last 10, 15 minutes of the movie or so, it would freeze up like it was going to run an ad, and then it would just kick out and go back to the menu screen. And it did that a couple of times, and it was okay. Well, I guess this is fucked, though. So then that's when we looked it up on YouTube, and there was a copy there, and it was an old VHS print that was absolutely washed out, just plain, just terrible. It would knock stars off of this movie if you were rating it and you had to watch that entire thing. Because I mean, I'm a fan aficionado of VHS, but this one was like, I don't know what print this was struck from. I would assume maybe it was a bootleg VHS or something, but it was just terribly washed out. Thankfully, we were able to watch most of it though on Plex.
Yeah, because I will say that version on Plex did look really good. I mean, I was thinking that myself.
Oh yeah.
Even when it started, I'm like, you know what? No matter what happened with this movie, like this copy of it looks really good for a movie that came out in 1975 with a low budget. Should have that.
Now, granted, this is the first time I've seen it in years, though. I mean, well over 15 probably years. I've seen this particular Paul Naschy movie.
Before we dive into it, I'm sure we're all itching to talk about it. I want to throw out the usual information. Go over to aaspookshow.com. We call that the center of the Spook Show universe. From there, you can reach or listen to all of our past podcast archive. They're all there. They're accessible. You can also get to our YouTube channel from there, where every month we have series over on our YouTube channel, such as Video Vortex, Grindhouse Gutter, which Grindhouse Gutter would fit in perfectly if this is the type of movie you like, right? This is right up that Grindhouse alley. And Hammer Horror in Order. So those are shorter videos, but they have like clips of the movies and stuff in them. So we have a lot of fun doing that. Check those out over on our YouTube channel. And you can also probably find it pretty easily by searching for All American Spook Show on YouTube if you don't go over to AA Spook Show and find the link. You can also go to our TeePublic page from there. And we also encourage you to become a patron over patreon.com/AA Spook Show. You can also reach that from the website. So you can see why we say that's the center, because everything can be found right there on aaspookshow.com. Like I said, this is the first time I had seen this movie, but I know there was a whole history with the what do they call them? Smoke, the Hombre Lobo films.
Yeah, and Waldemar Daninsky movies, which is his character's name in the movie. He's like a Polish werewolf. But yeah, El Hombre Lobo for the.
It's funny because it's a Spanish movie with a dude with like a Polish name or whatever, right?
Yeah, and that was just, I guess, just Paul Naschy's thing, just making it Slavic. I mean, Polish rather. Slavic, Polish. So, but for whatever reason, I don't know why necessarily he did. That's the thing. It's just a cool sounding name, Count Valdemar Daninsky.
Now there was an allusion to this, I think, with all the titles. There's like I could find a handful of titles for this one. The actual original title for this in Spain was called La Maldición de la Bestia, and then eventually, when it was released on video, it was called The Werewolf and the Yeti. Then there is a cut version of the movie out there called. This is the one that kind of like what the hell? It's called Hall of the Mountain King. I don't know exactly where that title. Like that title doesn't make much sense with what's going on here, but whatever.
No. I mean, they don't even play any of the Grieg, the classical composer that made that composed Hall of the Mountain King. So I don't know why. Or for that matter, the heavy metal song "Hall of the Mountain King" by Sabotage is not in there either.
If nothing else, it's just a cool title, but it doesn't make sense with what's going on in this movie. I'll say that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a hall in a mountain. I guess you could say but there's no Mountain King.
Yeah. Then there's the TV title, Horror of the Werewolf, and then there's just the what other than the title that we kind of know it as Night of the Howling Beast, which I think eventually it was called once it hit VHS years later on or whatever. But there's one more title I found called The Curse of the Beast. So other than Hall of the Mountain King, they're all variations of kind of the same thing, right? But yeah, you might see this movie as any of these when you're looking stuff up about it or when you're trying to find a copy of the movie.
As a matter of fact, too, y'all watched it on Plex, even though it's called Night of the Howling Beast, which you search the title on Plex. When you start watching the movie, you notice that the title is like the Werewolf versus the Yeti title, I think.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. On the actual credits at the beginning of the movie,
on the actual credit title card, yeah.
Yep. But it was released, January 9th, 1975 there in Spain. And then it didn't come to America until some point in 1977. I couldn't find a particular date on the calendar, but it was sometime in 1977, 2 years later, it came out here in the U.S. So I would imagine, like I said, grindhouses, drive-in, stuff like that, probably.
Yeah.
It was produced by Pro Films, Modesto Perez Redondo, and Jose Antonio Perez Gainer, and it was distributed by Mariano Sanz in Spain. And then here in the U.S., it was distributed by Independent International Pictures, which sounds like the front for some shady activity if I've never heard of it. Right? Independent International Pictures. Wink, wink, you will get paid. It is rated R with a total runtime of 1 hour and 27 minutes. On IMDb, it's listed as an adventure/horror. And best I could tell, it was filmed in various areas around Barcelona, Spain, somewhere in between June and July of 1974. And to what we were talking about a few minutes ago, Smoke, this is the 8th in the series, the Hombre Lobo films that were made by Paul Naschy about Count Waldemar Daninsky. This is the 8th in that series, but this movie basically pretends that none of those previous 7 movies happened because you get a different origin of him as a werewolf and everything. Because he's a werewolf in every one of those movies, right? But for some reason, they decided to kind of tell a different story in this one that doesn't connect to.
Yeah, actually, that happens in some of the other ones too. I believe I haven't, even though I love Paul Naschy and this character, I haven't seen all 13. Well, actually, we'll get into this. One of the movies is lost for completely right now. At least nobody's found it, come across it. But of the 12 that exist, I don't really have the number that I've seen offhand. Probably seen maybe half of them, I guess. Sometimes they are linking things, characters and plots, but not necessarily plots, but events maybe that happen that link to another movie. But a lot of times they're standalone movies like this one, where it doesn't really link to any events that wouldn't happen in prior films. And sometimes, like I said, there's a few that do, but for the most part, they're kind of self-contained stories. In other words, you don't need to. You can dip into pretty much any Waldemar Daninsky movie and not be like, well, what happened in the last movie, or that you need to know what happened in the last movie.
Yeah,
like I said, it's kind of self-contained.
So it's kind of a loose series that you didn't have to necessarily jump on to just have a good time with it, which probably plays into that grindhouse drive-in appeal of it at the time, right?
Yeah, definitely. And surprisingly enough, I haven't this is the first. And I don't know if you want me to go into it here at this point. A little bit of background on Paul Naschy, because this is the first time he's appeared on podcast at all. Like haven't even done a Grindhouse Gutter movie with him in it yet.
Yeah, the funny thing is I think he's come up, or the series has come up, especially when we did the Summer of the Wolf series a few years back. I know it was talked about then, but yeah, you're right. This is the first time we've actually sat down and watched any of his movies.
Yeah, because we never got back around to doing another. I mean, we do a summer thing just about every summer, pretty much. I think since that Summer of the Wolf was the first one, right?
Yeah.
Really?
That was back.
We've done other various summer things. Yeah, right. And we haven't gotten back around to doing another Summer of the Wolf or anything like that. So maybe we were holding off on some Paul Naschy. We didn't do any, like you said, that first Summer of the Wolf season. We didn't do any Paul Naschy movies. We were kind of doing some big name, more big name stuff that was American and whatnot. So, but yeah, this is the first time we've done Paul Naschy, and first time we've done a El Hombre Lobo movie or whatever. So, but like you said, there were technically 13 of these movies, but the only one, one of them is unfortunately non-existent right now, and Paul Naschy, who passed away back in 2000. Was it 2009? I believe it was.
Yeah, 9.
Could be wrong that year. Yeah, it was 2009. That even up to the time of sometime shortly before the time of his death, he was trying to locate that movie and he never could find it. I don't know what happened.
That's crazy.
And I think it was the second one. So the first movie was 1968's Frankenstein's Bloody Terror, and then that second one was the Lost One, which I don't think it ever had an English title. It was Las Noches del Hombre Lobo, or the night. I guess it would translate to the Nights of the Wolfman. Yeah, that's the one that's lost. So technically, that was the second one. The third one was Dracula versus Frankenstein. That one's also called Assignment Terror. Another name for that one. And then number 4 was the Werewolf versus the Vampire Woman, aka the Werewolf's Shadow. That was 1971. Then number 5 was Fury of the Wolfman. That was 1972. That one I still do have on VHS. Number 6 was Dr. Jekyll versus the Werewolf, 1972 as well. Number 7, Curse of the Devil. That's a really fun one. I don't know. It's hard to pick which is my best. And like I said, we'll get into it when we get into this movie. How good versus bad these movies can be. But as far as storyline and things that happen in the movie, I think Curse of the Devil is certainly one of my favorite ones. And that was, like I said, number 7 from 1973. Then we come to this one, like you mentioned, it was number 8. Night of the Howling Beast, 1975. Then number 9 is Night of the Werewolf. That's 1981. Number 10 was The Beast and the Magic Sword from 1983. Number 11, The Howl of the Devil. That's 1988. Then you have another one that didn't. At the time that I compiled this Paul Naschy list, it didn't have an English title. Maybe since it's been released over here, so I'm not 100% sure on this, but it was the number 12 movie was Licantropo, El Asesino de la Luna Llena. That one came out in 1997. Like I said, I don't know if it's been released over here yet. I need to dig into that and find out. Maybe the next time we do another Paul Naschy movie, I'll have that information. So.
I actually do see something on that one. It looks like there was no U.S. theatrical release, but there is a U.S. DVD dubbed.
Oh,
English,
cool.
And the title of that is Lycantropo, the Full Moon Killer.
Oh, okay, cool. Well, that's good to know then, because when I compiled this list, which has been a number of years back, it hadn't. This, of course, I think when I compiled this was back in the earlier DVD days.
Yeah.
And then the final one was the newest movie. The last one he made was 2004's Tomb of the Werewolf. And that movie, most all of those movies I listed above, all those, Waldemar Daninsky movies, Paul Naschy himself had something other than just acting. He had either a writing credit or a writing and directing credit, or, some various credits on all those. The only one he just acted in, didn't have any creative control over, was that last one, that Tomb of the Werewolf. And that was actually directed by Fred Owen Ray. So I think I'm sure he's popped up on the podcast somewhere. He had to.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he has, yeah.
So he was a big-time B-movie schlock director from the 70s, 80s, and whatnot.
He did one of those, just off the top of my head, it was one of those, was it Terminal Force, I think, that we did on Video Vortex.
Oh, I think so, yeah. Yep. And then also just Paul Naschy in general, that's not his real name. That's his stage name. Because he's a Spanish actor. And he was a bodybuilder, before he went into acting and whatnot. But his real name is Jacinto Molina Alvarez, and you'll actually see that writing credit I talked about, where not everyone, but like I said, he's either involved creatively in some way, shape, or form, director or writer on most all of those other Walter Mortaninsky films. But he's usually credited as an actor as Paul Naschy, but as a writer under that Jacinto Molina name. But the reason why he went with the Paul Naschy is because that first movie he put out in 1968, when he was distributing it to foreign markets, they were like, the Jacinto Molina Alvarez, we can't really market. This is back in the times we've talked about this on the show before, video rentals and all that. When it comes to a lot of times when it came to English-speaking countries, they were kind of hesitant on renting or watching foreign movies, so they would often anglicize the names. Like I said this before, Lucio Fulci would become Louis Fuller, for instance, or Anthony Dawson was, Antonio Margheriti was Anthony Dawson, et cetera, et cetera. So that they would anglicize their names, and he took the name Paul from, I think, Pope Paul VI, and then Naschy was the Germanic name version of one of his favorite, bodybuilders, which was and I had his name here too somewhere. I have to find it, but now it escapes me on this list.
Well, there's some more of that going on here too with the rest of this movie, because the director of this movie was Miguel Iglesias, but he did it as M.I. Bonds.
Yeah.
So M.I. Miguel Iglesias Bonds. I don't know what the hell the Bonds comes from, but yeah.
Yeah, that was just a thing going on at that time in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, into probably the early 90s, of trying to mask movies that were foreign and make them look more English if it was in England, or more Americanized English, whatever, if it was in America. So
plus it was probably, there's always money at the root of these things, right? It was probably a lot cheaper for these distributors to get a hold of these movies that came out in Spain and Italy and other markets and bring them here, and throw them into the grindhouses and drive-ins, right?
Yep.
So they had to, like you said, just kind of anglicize the names to kind of just get them out in there, and nobody would, pitch a fit, so to speak.
Yeah.
Now Miguel Iglesias, the director, he also had done a couple of, I guess he was more known for a couple of movies called Kilma, Queen of the Jungle. There was like 2 or 3 of those movies. He directed those other than this one. And of course, you mentioned it, Paul Naschy, he did not only the screenplay for this one, but it's a story by him. So it's all his story, all his screenplay here. He just didn't direct it. It stars, of course.
He was. I was going to say, he was a huge fan of Universal's monster movies, specifically that Frankenstein meets the Wolfman, which pretty much influenced his whole aspect of Walter Mortaninsky, and the wolf lore. The look of the Wolfman is very much that Lon Chaney, and then also Lon Chaney Jr. himself. He wanted Lon Chaney Jr. to be in these movies from the beginning, from that one in 1968. But at that time, Chaney was like 62 years old, I think, and he probably would have done it, but he was too sickly to travel at that time.
I'm not sure what year he died, but it seems like he passed away in the late 60s, early 70s too. So
I think he had something going on at that time, even though he was 62, and I mean that's not that old, but I think he had some ailment going on at that time, and wasn't too much longer beyond 68 or so. I forget, I don't have the exact year when he died too, but it was probably not too long after that.
No. But it stars Paul Naschy as Waldemar Daninsky, and the only other one that you might have heard of on any level was his love interest in the movie, Sylvia. That was played by Mercedes Molina, and she was in a movie that came out pretty much right around the same time in 1975 called Exorcism. But all the rest of the actors you probably wouldn't know so much, or recognize so much. Gil Vidal was Larry Talbot in this movie, which that's funny, right? Because Larry Talbot, wasn't that the name from the original Wolfman? Wasn't that his name?
Yeah, that was that was Lon Chaney Jr.'s name in the series. Larry Talbot.
So that's funny. Obviously, putting that in, that little Easter egg in there, so to speak, right? For you, the listeners of the All American Spook Show podcast, Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a free 30-day trial to give you the opportunity to check out their service. So hop on over to audible.com, and this time, since that's what a good portion of this movie is about, is werewolves. Let's type in werewolf to see what would pop up. And Donnie, this is right up your alley, buddy. Werewolf Guardian Romance, books 1 through 3. Her Werewolf Bodyguard, Her Werewolf Protector, Her Werewolf Defender by Jodie Vaughn. And I'm guessing all 3 books combined are just over 19 hours. So
God damn. No.
it's steamy werewolf loving for you there, Donnie.
Yeah.
We've also got The Alpha's True Mate, a secret baby rejected mate werewolf shifter rope. What the fuck?
I'm sorry. Could you read that again?
I just read it. I'm just gonna read it. It's like a run-on sentence. A secret baby rejected mate werewolf shifter romance. It's the Eternal Bond series by Jamin Snow. That was just over 12 hours long. So, yeah, surprise, surprise, I guess. There's a lot of romance novels around werewolves that you can find over there on audibletrial.com/spookshow. To get your free audiobook, go to audibletrial.com/spookshow today. So I'm going to hop back over to imdb.com and click on plot summary to see if hopefully there's not really like a really long one for you, Donnie, but maybe we need that help explaining it. We've got 2, but neither of them are really long, so you lucked out this month, or this week I should say. We've got Daninsky joins a Yeti expedition in the Himalayas but gets captured by cannibalistic nymphs guarding a Buddhist temple. That sentence is like, what the fuck? They turn him into a werewolf where he encounters a sadistic bandit while roaming the mountains. Then we've got the next one, or the last one, is Valdemar Daninsky, the renowned adventurer, joins an expedition to find the Yeti in the Himalayas. While hiking in the mountains, he is captured by 2 cannibalistic demon nymphets guarding a remote Buddhist temple and becomes their sex slave. They transform him into a werewolf, setting him loose to roam the mountains where he encounters a sadistic bandit, and that was contributed by Arviga over on IMDb. So yeah, that explains everything and nothing all at the same time, right? Like, especially that part, that aspect of the movie. Hold on, small edit. Tiana, your mic is muted, so if you want to chime in, you need to unmute it. But that aspect of the movie right there, like that. Okay, so like I'm going through the movie, and I'm like, all right, this is the fucking snow monster event. This is the polar predators. What the hell? Where's the Yeti? I think you get the Yeti right at the very beginning, like literally like the first scene, like in the first 2 minutes. There's these dudes are attacked by a Yeti, and then you never see the Yeti again until the last 5 or 6 minutes of the movie, where there is eventually the big throwdown, right? So yeah, I was just like, well, fuck. I mean, like, I guess this fits eventually, but like, boy, we had to wait a long time to get there, right?
Yeah, like I said, I don't know the details on that storyline of this and all that, but if I had to guess, I would say maybe he had this cool idea of like setting things in a more Arctic setting, and the way to do that was like just pull in the Yeti a little bit so you could get Valdemar Daninsky to that area have a reason to get him there. Because it's definitely more of a Valdemar Daninsky werewolf movie than it is a Yeti film.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, like, I guess, like, well, we need something to kind of wrap around this. We need to sell it as something that's a little different. It's not just a regular old werewolf movie. So let's throw this Yeti thing in there, and we'll just throw a little thing at the beginning, and then have the big throwdown at the end, and then that's all the Yeti you get. So, not that that's a horribly bad thing. It's just like I'm sitting there watching. I'm like, it took me about 45 minutes until I'm like, where the fuck is the Yeti in this thing? And then there's another 30 minutes until you finally see it. Even after that, when I thought, good lord,
which is probably why. I mean, I think the original title did have the Yeti in the title or whatever, but the Night of the Howling Beast is a much more fitting title for it, because, like I said, that gives you more the sense of being a werewolf movie, which is really what it is.
Yeah. So I see what you were trying to do here, Tiana. You were trying to backdoor in a werewolf movie instead of you're trying to avoid another Yeti movie, weren't you?
Yeah.
Well, it worked.
Or conniving to get a Paul Naschy movie in here somewhere.
Yeah, there's that. Yeah. But to be fair, that little time period that you had to choose from, there wasn't really a lot, that we filed, so it's kind of that dead period where there was a handful, but not that many, until you got into the 2000s, there's more. So one of those weird things.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know why. There's a rich bunch of lore behind the Yeti and stuff that could have been worked into a lot of things. That they didn't really touch it too much beyond the Hammer movie, right? And a few other ones here and there. Like I said, until you get to the 2000s.
Yeah, until what we just watched. What was that? A couple weeks ago when we watched Abominable from 2006. Like, I think that was one of the first ones in a while, because there weren't that many that we could find when we were digging around finding movies like throughout the 80s and 90s. There weren't that many, unless you count Donnie's favorite, To Catch a Yeti. Bye. Unless you count that, I mean, there wasn't that many, man. It was like this little dead period for about 15, 20 years there. It's weird. Anyways, this one. The very beginning of the movie, though, when this Yeti jumps out and attacks these, like, two guys, he just kind of paws one dude, like, that guy's gone. And then he grabs a hold, was it a gun or something, like a pole, something that the dude had, and just kind of weakly chokes him out. He didn't even, like, hold it on there for very long. He's kind of like, ugh, and then the guy's, like, holding it himself to his own throat as he falls over. Oh, and then,
Like
and
the ice shark.
But then it cuts to London. I think that's what it looked like to me. It cuts, like, there's a little cut pan shot of London, and the music that's playing in the background is Roddy Piper's entrance music. I was like, kind of weird. That doesn't fit London, but whatever.
Piper's Pit.
Yeah, it's like Piper's Pit's about to start. Kind of a weird pull. So they eventually, like, in the story, there's like a group of people that are like, all right, we're going to go up to the Himalayas. I think, right? That's what they're laying out here. We're going to. By the way, this doesn't look anything like the Himalayas. Like, nothing. Like that. It looks like they shot it in the summertime in Barcelona, Spain, because there's snow, but not very much, right? They're on a mountain.
Well, there's
grass everywhere.
They must have shot that one scene. I don't know what. At least there was one specific scene in there. I remember, like, this had to be hell to shoot. It looked like a damn blizzard was going on.
They must have. Best I can tell, what they probably did is they must have went further up the mountains where there was snow, shot a few scenes, got some some pans and some stuff that they can use as filler later, and then they went down to the base of the mountain, shot the rest of the movie. Because the rest is clearly like a wooded forest. I don't think the players look anything like that. I may be wrong about my geography.
Well, I didn't look up. I should have. That's another thing I didn't check on this. Was I should have looked at, and I'm sure it's on IMDb, locations that was shot in.
Best I can tell, it was just various areas around Barcelona.
Around Barcelona.
I don't know the name of those mountains and all that's around there, but
yeah,
it's the best I could tell.
I mean, and that makes sense. I'm sure he didn't pack together an expedition to go to the Himalayas or anything to get those scenes. On the budget I'm sure he had for this was pretty low.
Himalayas was the one. Yeah, actual Himalayas was the one thing that was not on the locations that I could find with anything here. So yeah, at best you got some stock footage from some other movie, that was actually shot in the Himalayas. But that's the premise, is like they gather together and we're gonna go find the Yeti. And then there's like a huge chunk of the movie where it's like you're just kind of watching the politics of these people arguing about how they should go about it. It really drug it down for me. I think you should go over there. No, I don't know. And then eventually, like, this group of pirates, like Tibetan pirates, show up and kidnap some of them, and just for torture. I don't know what the fuck their story was. They didn't go too deep into that, but that was kind of a weird subplot. But I love before they take off. So they gather in like this lodge somewhere. Like, all right, we're about to go up, but damn it, this storm rolled in, and it's just too rough to go up there right now. And then the another guy was like, well, God, that would take a couple of weeks, to wait to go up there until this clears out. And then that one guy basically suggests that, well, we got liquor and we've got women, so his proposal is, let's just drink and fuck for the next 2 weeks. and then we'll go up and look for the Yeti. They cut that down pretty quick. Thankfully. Thankfully for us as viewers, at least. Also, there is too at certain parts, especially before they actually go on the formal expedition and go up to the mountains. None of these people look prepared in any way to go mountain climbing, like at all. You're like, no, this isn't like a Himalayan expedition. this is this is this is some people just gonna go like camping for a night at best. Like they don't look anything like they're about to go. I think, by the way, now that I think of it, that London cutaway or whatever was kind of weird because weren't they supposed to be in Kathmandu? Maybe that was the gathering before they went to Kathmandu or something like that. I don't know. It's
I don't know.
oddly put together. Then eventually they get up. They kind of split up, right? Because like Baltimore and another guy kind of go up on their own.
Mm-hmm.
And then the one guy like quickly, I guess you don't never really know what happened to that other guy, that guy with the wacky eyes that goes up there.
Oh, he was
With
the
them?
opium fiend.
He just like, we're all gonna die. We shouldn't have come up here. And then he just runs away. And then you see him slide down, and then he just fucking gone. So I guess something
Well,
got
that
I don't know.
as tends to happen when you hire an opium addict to lead your expedition, your guy.
Oh yeah, his
Maybe.
eyes are wide, son. He's just he's whacked out of his gourd. But anyway, so eventually Waldemar Daninsky's character, the character of Waldemar, he gets lost up in the mountains or whatever, and then is found by a couple of women, for lack of a better term, the two cave chicks, and and then there's this weird fever dream, cannibal, werewolf thing going on here that like you're just like, what the fuck is he falling into here? Right? Like he's kind of in and out of consciousness. Then you hear them saying like, oh, he must be a passionate lover, and then eventually one girl comes up and he starts making out with her, and then she disappears and becomes a different girl, and then he looks over and the other girl is sitting there, and then he kind of opens up his eyes again, and then they're both gone. So like he's caught in the middle of like some kind of weird fever dream, finds them again later, and they're eating a leg or an arm.
Cannibal.
So they're cannibals. Then there's this weird ritual thing they do where there's a body, like an old corpse in a tomb or something, and then the full moon shines down on him, and he kind of fights and tussles with him or whatever. I think he stabs the first one, right? Yeah. He stabs her, then she just becomes dust. Then she just becomes a skeleton and dies. And then
It's not that she becomes dust. It's how you say dust. She becomes dust.
well, she kind of dusted, and then all of a sudden there's a skeleton there. That's what happened. Then the other girl attacks, and she's got like she got a little bit of hair on her face. So you're like, oh shit, she's a vampire or a werewolf of some descript. She attacks him and bites him. So that's how he becomes a werewolf. And then right after that, he actually turns into the werewolf. And then he kills just about everybody in this movie except Sylvia. It's like one by one, like most of the people from his expedition get killed. A lot of these Tibet pirates, they eventually get killed by him. It's just like one by one, he's just pawing the fuck out of everybody.
and like you said, this is, as you see here, he didn't start off as a werewolf in this movie. He became a werewolf when he got bitten. So you can see the standalone type plot where this movie has nothing, even though it's the 8th one in the series of Waldemar Daninsky movies, it has nothing to do with any before or after.
It is the middle part of this movie is some weird stuff. Like you got to pay attention because like a lot of this stuff doesn't connect for me. Like it's just you got 3 or 4 different things going on here. Like I said, the subplot with the pirates kidnapping people and like torturing them for no good reason that I could tell, and then you got this weird cannibal werewolf. What do they call it in that one description? Nymphet. Cannibalistic. Kind of that's just wow. Like it's just like what the fuck is going on? Like it's just like he had a bunch of kind of cool ideas and just said fuck it, let's just throw it all in there. Werewolf stew. Oh yeah, shit. There's supposed to be a Yeti in this. All right, last 5 minutes.
That's about right.
Yeah, like then like literally in the last like less than 10 minutes. It's like 6 to 8 minutes of the movie. he turns back into a werewolf when he's with basically him and Sylvia, his love interest or whatever. They're the only ones that's kind of survived. He turns into a werewolf again. Then all of a sudden the Yeti just appears. Ha! They face off and they tussle. It's a horrible fight.
Yeah, they basically just wrestle.
They just roll around. They just kind of roll, and it's behind a tree, so you can't even really get the details of it. Now, I'm assuming that's just because, well, we don't have the greatest budget in the world. We don't want people to stare at this too much, so let's just get over there where the camera's not focusing on us that much. And eventually, Voldemort gets the upper hand and bites the Yeti's throat, so he kills the Yeti, but he is actually mortally wounded in this fight, too. And he essentially just rolls over and dies, right? But then Sylvia somehow is able to revive him with this flower. It's like this Tibetan flower or something that happens to be growing over there that has her blood on it. She's able to use it to revive him. He turns back into his human form, and then they walk off into the sunset. So yeah, it makes about as much sense as I just explained. It's a lot of fun, but it's wacky.
Yeah. That's
Wacky,
about accurate.
Well, there you go. That's Night of the Howling Beast from 1975. And I'll be honest with you, I really don't think I've seen any other Paul Naschy. I know we haven't watched any for the Spook Show, obviously, but I don't think I've ever seen any of his other movies. So
yeah, same here.
Well, I'll tell you this before you give your rating and before you. For me personally, I haven't seen all of them, but I've seen a good, probably, I don't know, half, maybe a little bit less than half. But not including the one that's lost, of course, which hopefully that'll turn up somewhere. But I would put this middling. It's like not my favorite, not the worst, kind of middling for me on the ones I have seen.
That was kind of my question. Like, where does this fall? Like, is this a good example of these movies, or is this a bad? Or so you said mid. That this explains it.
Yeah, it's kind of mid because, like you said, there's a bunch of things going on that don't really tie up. A lot of loose ends and a lot of plots that go nowhere or various. I mean, I don't mind that. I'm kind of used to that in these types of movies and whatnot. But as far as these Waldemar Daminsky movies go, there are other ones that have much more coherent and tight plots. And then there's some that are, I don't know that there's too many that are like this, where all over the place. But and then there's some that like the 2004 Fred Olen Ray, which is, but as you can imagine, not that great. I mean, it's probably the worst one I've seen.
I've seen tons of Italian movies, and I've seen my fair share of Spanish movies enough to know that like this is the, I know how they feel. You know what I mean? Like I get how they could be sometimes. This one's a little bit extra. This was even a little bit more. Like you really got to be paying attention, and even then, you probably won't completely understand everything that's going on here because it just jumps around a little too much for my taste. But it's still fun in moments, and although that werewolf Yeti fight, as cool as that sounds on paper, did not pay off exactly the way I would have liked to have seen it. But hey, 1975, right? This is probably the only time there's ever been a werewolf versus a Yeti, right? I
would say probably, yeah. Without contact, without digging into it, I'm pretty sure it's safe to say it probably is.
So it's unique in that way, I guess. So there you go. Well, Tiana, you brought it to the table. So we'll let you go first. What's your final thoughts and what's your star rating on it?
This is my first Paul Naschy film that I've watched, so it probably is the weaker of his other ones. Because I've seen people do reviews on the other ones before, but I just like how he likes to try to bring that Hammer or Universal Monsters feel and the look and all, and his werewolf look. I like it in the way he presents it. I'm gonna give this one a 2.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Like the look of the werewolf and everything, it does look very much like Lon Chaney Jr.'s Wolfman, Universal, whatever, however you want to phrase it. It definitely looks a lot like that. So you have to appreciate that aspect of it. So, Donnie, what do you say about it?
Yeah, I enjoyed this one. It was like you said, it was it's kind of batshit at at most of the time. But yeah, I think I'm probably around, because my scale is, if I'm gonna watch it again, it's got to be at least 3 stars. I don't think I'll watch this one again. Doesn't mean I won't watch another Paul Naschy, because we're obviously going to get to more of his stuff. So, but for me, this one didn't quite hit it all the time. I still enjoyed it, but I'm right up. I'm actually going to echo Tiana's rating at a 2.
Smoke, what do you say about it?
Oh yeah. I'm probably partial. I'm biased towards Paul Naschy and just that sort of bonkers foreign cinema of the 70s and early 80s and whatnot. Anyway, as I said though, this isn't the best of Paul Naschy or even the Walter Murdovinsky series. Kind of mid ground in there, so it could have been. It's not as gory as some of the other ones, and it's gorier than others. So that's also kind of in the mid zone there as far as the gore. And as Tiana mentioned, and y'all mentioned, the look of the werewolf I love it. It's that classic look that not only Lon Chaney but also Hammer's Curse of the Werewolf had that same sort of look. Teen Wolf actually has the same sort of look. All right. So yeah, I love it, and he's also he's very acrobatic. I mean, he was a bodybuilder in Spain for a while, and I don't know why I had it in my head that he also did some wrestling at the time, but like I said, I couldn't dig up that information on him. But he is very acrobatic and doing some stunts. Jumping. That one scene we watched it twice because I think it crapped out on us and we had to go back to it. And we ended up watching it again. Was when he's on top of the rock as the Wolfman, and he jumps off the rock down below to fight those guys down below, and he's basically in that mid somersault just about, because he's landing off screen on some on an airbag or whatever. But he's jumping and he's in a mid somersault. But when he lands perfectly on his feet, like he wasn't even trying to do the somersault. It's just a bad, it's a bad edit or whatever, I guess. Mm-hmm. Or but still very stunts. He did, I guess, did some of his own stunts, those types of things. Like I said, very acrobatic. Wolfman, when he's fighting, he's lunging in, very wrestling type moves. Actually, he did a drop kick. Did you catch that when he did the drop kick against that ponytail dude?
Uh-huh.
So yeah, it's enjoyable and entertaining, and my rating is going to be higher than y'all's. But like I said, I'm take that for what it's worth. For anybody not used to these types of movies, probably be more in line with y'all's rating on it. I'm gonna go a little bit higher though. I'll go 2 and I'll go 2 3/4. But again, take that with a grain of salt because I'm seasoned in the Paul Naschy movie universe.
And look, I can totally agree with that on a lot of ways. Like, like I said, I've seen plenty of these types of movies, although I haven't seen any other Naschy movies, to know how they kind of feel.
Yeah.
That being said, this one has some really slow moments in it that kind of like.
It does.
That like. I mean, there's plenty of action. Don't get me wrong. There's plenty of moments where it's a werewolf running around killing people. So that's cool. And you get blood and all that jazz. But like, and you get that typical grindhouse drive-in type of stuff too. With you get some brief nudity and all, the exploitative type stuff that you see in these type of movies. So some of that's there. I think I'm somewhere in between Smoke what you said and what they've said. I'm gonna go 2 1/4. Because I can appreciate it for what it is. It's just, a little slower than I like at parts. But, yeah, I think there's still a lot of fun to be had. Although that werewolf Yeti fight might be the only one we've ever seen. But it's still anticlimactic in a lot of ways,
Wow.
And then what the fuck of, like, she just finds a flower with blood on it. And now he's a human again. The end. So, like, that's like, what? Huh?
I feel like that flower is part of the lore of werewolves. Is that accurate?
Well, there's the wolfsbane blooms thing.
Yeah. Like wolfsbane. Yeah.
Maybe it is.
Well, I know the monk told her what to do earlier.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Maybe I just missed that. Because there was a lot of I was just tuning out. I'll be honest with you. I was just like, oh, fuck. This monk.
And then the monk with his head Remember, he was decapitated.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, I mean, but I think overall, I enjoyed it, and the quality of that copy that they had on Plex, like we said earlier, that was a solid. That looked solid. I mean, like
Oh yeah,
it didn't look like a cheap ass movie from 1975. Like
no,
it was
no. I feel like if you would have had to watch that VHS version or whatever version that is that was on YouTube that we had to go and watch the last 10 minutes of, I feel like you would have given it a lot less of a rating. It was pretty terrible. It was just almost unwatchable.
Yeah. Well, there you go. That means overall we give it 2.25 stars. So that's what it averages out to be. So I think that's enough to say we recommend checking it out at least once. If you like, those monster type movies, specifically of the 70s, I think you'll dig it. So there's that. Before we close up shop, though, Donnie, you got any connections for us?
No, actually, I don't. Usually, you'd find something, but no. This won't be the last time we hear of Paul Naschy either. But so we'll probably come back to this one later on.
That just goes that we haven't done a lot of like 60s, 70s Spanish horror movies. We just haven't.
Yeah.
We've done any at all. I don't recall.
Yeah, this is just scratching the surface. I'm
for
sure.
sure.
Well, we did. I think we did vampires. Wasn't that a vampires or whatever? The lesbian vampire movie thing.
I think
that was Grindhouse.
Yeah, it was on Grindhouse. Yeah, that's true. Wasn't it? I think it was too.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Tiana, what's the kill count? Did you come up with a number or find a number here?
I couldn't find the exact number online, which I figured for this movie, but I'm gonna say at least it has to be more than 10. Because I mean, he wiped out all. Well, the two in the beginning was the Yeti, and then him as a werewolf, he wiped out that whole daggone tribe or whatever it was.
There was at least 2 scenes in there where he's just left and right, like smacking, clawing, just bam, bam, just dudes falling left and right. So, yeah, I'd say it's easily over a dozen. So
yeah.
God, I've got the highlight kill, and I can't really think of one that really sticks out. I guess you got to go with the climactic moment of the werewolf versus the Yeti and them rolling around. I mean, although it's a little weak, but it's probably the first and only time you see a werewolf versus a fucking Yeti. So yeah, him biting its throat and killing a Yeti. That's and then he kind of got killed from it too, right? So I guess we'll go with that, the highlight kill. So Mook, that leaves us with you. What's the gore score?
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, it's not the goriest of these Walter Mordinsky movies, nor is it the least goriest either. So I put it. You had a little bit of cannibalism, right? The cannibal girls chewing on an arm or whatever, and near the beginning, and some impalements by sword. There's the trap door. That was fun, right? The trap door opens up and the guy falls on the spikes. Although you see the aftermath of him on the spikes, and then the body that was down
2
there.
guys, including like the professor from earlier.
Yeah, and then you had the monk who was decapitated. You don't see the decapitation, but you see again just the severed head there.
Yeah.
So yeah, this movie has a lot of aftermath, I guess you'd say, of gory events that had happened.
Yeah, kind of the goriest thing, if you think about it, is probably like whenever he would bite a victim or whatever, and then like he's got blood pouring out of his mouth. They would always kind of cut to him and like kind of close up, and the blood coming out of his mouth. So
yeah, and that which made a cool scene, and that happens a lot in these movies. You get a lot of blood dripping maul. His maul, dribbling down his hairy chin or whatever.
Yeah.
So also you get a lot of clawing, of course, clawing people's faces, but they're not terribly gory. It's just usually a little bit of a blood streak down the face, right? Not necessarily tearing, ripping flesh or anything. So overall, yeah, I'll probably go with let's put this one at a 6. Like I said, not the goriest by any means, but it was there, had a little bit there, chew on. Now we'll just wait till we get to some of the better, even Walter Mordinsky movies, like Curse of the Devil. That's a fun one. But even Paul Naschy movies that are not Walter Mordinsky ones, just there's other ones like Horror Rises from the Tomb is another personal favorite, or Oh, the Hunchback of the Morgue. That's a good one. I'll have to get that. That's got a lot of gore in it. So we'll get some more up here that are better. But this is a good place to start, I guess. Kind of like I said, it's kind of in the mid range of Paul Naschy movies. So might as well start somewhere.
Well, there you go. That's Night of the Howling Beast from 1975. Now, next week, we return back to our Cannon Fodder series. And yes, we found something that in some way, we'll find out next week, ties into our Polar Predators event. I'm not holding out a high hope, but, just by title alone and some of the synopsis I read, it's got something to do with this. And that's Secret of the Ice Cave. I think from 89 from Cannon. So, yeah, I don't have high hopes that this is going to be great, but hey, you never know. Cannon can surprise you sometimes. So we'll all find out together. So
You said Secret of the Ice Hole?
No. That's a different series.
Oh, that's a different.
Yeah, that's not Cannon.
Mm.
So there you go. So for Will couldn't be with us, Donnie, Tiana, Professor Smoke, I'm Josh. We are the All American Spook Show, and we'll talk to you next week for our latest Cannon Fodder.
Bye bye.